Mamdani heads to Washington as his party, especially the younger side, is collapsing. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. In these parts, they call him Zoran the Moron. New York's new communist mayor, Zoran Mamdani, does not take office for about another 6 weeks, but tomorrow he'll head to Washington, D.C. to meet with a president who is just openly mocking his political vision. Mamdani's reputation is already lagging in New York. Despite acting as humble as pie every time he gets in front of a camera, Zoran is reportedly arrogant, he's reportedly angry, and he resembles the behavior that we have seen of him in the past, like in this video where he's yelling at Tom Homan in New York City. But he's also promised the moon to all the brain-dead masses who voted for him, young, wide-eyed liberals and third-world migrants that have come here. Trump could easily make Zoran Mamdani a feckless one-term disaster. He has control of enough money to do so. So Zoran is being very respectful as he prepares to head to the White House tomorrow.
This meeting is between two very different candidates who they voted for the same reason. They wanted a leader who would take on the cost of living crisis. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda that benefits New Yorkers. If an agenda hurts New Yorkers, I will also be the first to say so.
So there you have it, on his best behavior, right? As Trump has threatened to withhold billions in federal funding for New York City, which would completely upend his socialist vision. He needs every penny he can get and a lot more to do even half the things that he says he's going to do. Trump has gone the other way on this relationship, just flat out calling him a communist in a social media post announcing their Oval Office meeting tomorrow. There you have it right there at the top. Zoran's big ideas looking awfully flimsy lately as he's already running into major funding issues and a governor in Albany that's aware of what he refuses to acknowledge, and that is very obvious: capital flight. The fact that raising taxes any further will likely result in less revenue as corporations and the wealthy accelerate their exodus, an exodus that started during COVID. And people don't like New York this time of year when it starts getting cold. Shown here in this moment with a local reporter. Just watch this back and forth.
How are you getting that money, the $700 million to make the buses free, into the MTA if she's not for raising taxes?
You know, I think that the two clearest ways to raise that money is through the raising of the state's corporate tax to match that of New Jersey. I think that a lot of this is still a case to be made. The most important fact is that we fund it, not the question of how we do it, but that we do it.
It's just empty rhetoric that got him in. That's all it takes these days. It's so sad. The most important fact is that we fund it, not how we do it. You're talking about $700 million. The most important fact is that we fund it, not how we do it. That's the answer on free buses. An answer that perfectly identifies Zoran Mamdani. He's clueless, he's unrealistic. He is just a vapid, dancing social media sensation. Zah! There it was right there. A completely unserious person about to be handed the keys to the most important city in the world. Plenty of that in the Democrat Party these days. The young guns that we see, especially, they hate the aging establishment. They've got zesty big ideas, but other than energy, they offer little in substance whatsoever. This week, when we learned that Delegate Stacey Plaskett from the U.S. Virgin Islands was vile enough to buddy up with a pedophile to get political ammunition against Donald Trump, her friend Jasmine Crockett tried to defend Plaskett, another one of these young guns, with one of the dumbest moments in congressional history, just flat out lying, alleging that many Republicans had accepted donations from a Jeffrey Epstein, she said during a congressional hearing. The private school rich girl from Missouri using her standard fake ghetto slang to make an easily debunkable accusation. Here it was.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly: Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all.
Okay. It didn't take long for the denials to come in. Zeldin over at the EPA tweeting out, it was a doctor with the same name. No freaking relation, you genius, he put into a tweet that came out minutes later. Crockett, after pulling this stunt, which, you know, again, if there's no credibility at all, there's no shame in doing stunts like this among the young Democrats, runs over to CNN and then sounds even worse. Take a look.
I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein, just so that people understand when you make a donation, your picture is not there. My team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies. Because it was not the same one, that's fine. But when Lee Zeldin had something to say, all he had to say was it was a different Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein, so at least I wasn't trying to mislead people.
The bar to be in Congress is on the floor. It's just that simple. The constituency that put her in that position, what on earth could you possibly have been thinking voting for somebody this ridiculous? And then there's the third House Democrat to be federally indicted this year, and that's Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, representing the Fort Lauderdale area in South Florida for just the past 3 years, another of these young guns, who stands accused tonight of stealing $5 million in COVID funds. $5 million. Yes, billions of dollars disappeared during COVID. We just found $5 million of it. Concealing the source through all of these, I guess, shell accounts, which was a Biden trick, as we know, and then using that $5 million to just buy her way into Congress, which is exactly what she did. Sherfilis McCormick doesn't make a lot of noise in Congress. Look through her Instagram and Twitter, and she just kind of there to get rich, going to stay under the radar, don't want to ruffle a lot of feathers, but I'm going to make some money while I'm here. But with this indictment, suddenly it's getting a little noisy from Sheila. The race card has been pulled.
It's an unjust indictment, and it seems like these intimidation tactics have been pervasive. We spent all week seeing different members getting censured, all in hopes of intimidating and kind of distracting from the Epstein files. If this is what Congress is becoming, where they're always trying to intimidate you, scare tactics, especially attacking minorities, black and brown people, then we're going to have to keep fighting for the district.
Yes, we're just attacking black and brown people. The evidence that led to this woman's indictment is about as solid as it gets. Prosecutors can see COVID FEMA money taken, $5 million. We're not talking about $100 here. This is a substantial amount of money. This was ballsy. It goes through shell accounts to conceal where it's coming from, and then it goes into her campaign coffers. You can scream racism all you want, and while predictable, that doesn't change the facts of anything. And finally, the Mamdani of the West, Seattle's new mayor, Katie Wilson, a socialist who's been so unsuccessful in the private sector that her parents still help her pay the bills at 43 years old, announcing she's finally going to stop taking a $2,000 allowance from dad now that she's running a major American city. This is the energy base of today's Democrat Party. And Ben Ferguson is the host of the Ben Ferguson Show. He joins us now with Tom Bevan, president of Real Clear Politics. Good to have you both here. Ben, they keep talking about the young guns in the Democrat Party, but they got a lot of energy, but are they brain dead?
Well, I mean, you know, you got to steal a little bit of cash if you want to be in the top of the Democratic Party right now, right? You got to yell, like, racism on everything, and then if you're Mamdani, you got to go to the White House, and I want to predict it right now. I just want to be clear. I do not think this meeting is anything more than Mamdani thinking about his next political step. I think he wants to walk out of there and say, I looked at Donald Trump in the eyes and I stuck my finger in his face and I told him what's coming to America. I think this is like a campaign 2.0 for him.
You think he's going to go in hard?
This is not kumbaya. This is a guy that
because he's being real careful with how he talks about it.
But he's an unserious person. I think this is all to say, my star is rising. I'm the leader of the Democratic Party, and I'm going to stand up to Orange Man bad. This also makes a lot of people that give him money going to love him even more because he went and met with Donald Trump. He told him what was going on. That's my prediction. I think this is all a show. I think it's charades.
That's good. I will say that and let's bring in Tom here for a second. I have the exact opposite. I think he's going to try and be a really good boy because if Trump can withhold those federal funds, I don't know how he gets anything done if he's missing $8 or $10 billion in the budget.
This is such an interesting thing. I'm going to be really excited to watch this because he's the one who asked for the meeting, right? And he ran his entire campaign, particularly the last few months, about how he was going to fight Donald Trump and stand up to Donald Trump. So, you know, he does want the money. He does need the money. But if he goes down there on bended knee to Donald Trump, that is not going to help him with his political base in New York. They're going to be livid with him. So I don't really know. I mean, he's going to go down there to tell Donald Trump it's expensive to live in New York City. Like, it makes no sense. I mean, it's a very intriguing gambit by Mamdani, and so I'll be interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I am too. We have predictions on all sides of this thing, so we don't know until it happens tomorrow. Ben, the last time we talked about Jimmy Kimmel, he had claimed that the Charlie Kirk shooter was a MAGA Republican and nearly cost him his job.
Yeah.
He has learned nothing. Here's his claim about the Epstein files from last night.
We are carefully following the path of Hurricane Epstein right now. It is a Category 5. It's expected to make landfall sometime very soon. We are now one step closer to answering the question, what did the president know and how old were these women when he knew it? Trump hasn't been this nervous about signing something since Don Jr.'s birth certificate.
The lesson from the Charlie Kirk thing for Kimmel was supposed to be, don't say stuff that's so demonstrably stupid just for political benefit, because this is ABC and we're trying to pretend like we're a real network.
Yeah,
he just did it again. I mean, there's all of this in the Epstein files that just sat with the Biden DOJ for 4 years.
Yeah.
Does anybody believe that?
No, and it's crap, but this is exactly what ABC has sanctioned. They've sanctioned this type of lying.
Yeah.
I would say this is libel. I'd say it's slanderous. I'd say that this is unethical. But then again, you're dealing with ABC News, and I'm just glad that you show proof of life that his show's still on the air. So we did find that out from this tonight. But this is the reason why no one watches this show. It's an unserious show. I also think it's the reason why you see so many people in the conservative movement that are now getting a voice, because Americans look at this and they realize this is just pure hatred of Donald Trump. Right. And it's also, I think, a lot of just hatred towards this country and what the American voters voted for. So they're not going to learn from this. Yeah. They're all going to get canceled one day because of lack of funding and no one's watching. That's going to be the demise of all these big late night shows.
Yeah, Tom, you know media so well. I mean, it's funny that you've got all of these networks, all these broadcast networks that are federally regulated. They all have one direction. Well, CBS is going to change here pretty soon, but they all move in one direction, and that's supposed to be okay. We're supposed to just accept that from Kimmel through The View all the way down to GMA, it's propaganda for one party in this country?
Right. I mean, Donald Trump threatening to pull their licenses. I mean, that's probably not a popular, but he does have he has a legitimate criticism, right? The ABC News under the news banner, right? The View is part of that. GMA is part of that, and it's 97%, 99%. All to the left. They never have a Republican guest on there. I mean, Alyssa Farah is supposed to be the sort of conservative. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so I think he has a legitimate criticism, not just of ABC, but of all the networks.
Yeah. It should be an in-kind donation, by the way.
The question is, can he make them change by jawboning them? Because if he goes to pull their licenses, that's going to be a political firestorm.
Yeah, no kidding. I got to leave it there. Ben Ferguson, Tom Bevan, good to have you guys. Thanks.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, Congressman Brandon Gill from Texas joins us tonight. Good to have you back on. We got 3 of your colleagues in the House federally indicted at this point, all Democrats. The latest is Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, who I will say, this is not somebody that was on my radar. Doesn't make a lot of noise in Congress, but was confronted about the investigations back in February by a news reporter. Take a look at how that went down first.
I also wanted to ask you about the investigation into your families. But this is also part of her congressional duties. Congresswoman, you're under investigation for the congressional ethics for violation of campaign finances. Congresswoman, this is your district. You have to answer to these people.
So that's back when it was an investigation. Now it's an indictment. Stole $5 million in COVID is the allegation and put it towards her campaign. That is bold.
It's incredibly bold. One of the reasons is, as we've known for quite a while, that Democrats are so opposed to Republicans cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal budget. One of the reasons they're so opposed to DOJ, which I've spent a lot of my time working on, is because they're laundering federal money into their campaign accounts and into their personal bank accounts. This is a perfect example of that. She ought to be investigated very deeply. I think I'm glad to see charges are being brought. But this is somebody, if she is found guilty, who has no business being in Congress.
Yeah, and you make a better point, too. I mean, this obviously is straight up, the allegation here is just straight theft of federal money that's supposed to go, during COVID, during a pandemic, and just putting it right in her coffers. But how much of the money that is sent out from this country, from the State Department, from USAID, ends up being funneled back into the coffers of Democrat politicians? How much of the money that we give to the government do they end up spending on themselves to stay in power? That's such a scary thought.
It really is, and that's something that we've got to get to the bottom of. I think this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. You know, there's billions of dollars that historically have gone to a vast array of NGOs, the NGO industrial complex, the vast majority of which are left-leaning. And once that money goes out, oftentimes it's very difficult to track where it goes, to which entities or to which people or to which campaigns. These are the things that DOJ has been working on.
Yeah. What did you make of the Jasmine Crockett stunt? You guys are from the same state. I mean, she goes up there and she starts talking about how Republicans have donations from Jeffrey Epstein. It's mind-boggling that a stunt like this, that she thought this was going to work, and it blew up in her face, and now she's trying to cover for it. What's your thoughts?
You know, she should be trying to cover for it. She should be apologizing is what she really should be doing. I mean, this is just egregious, slanderous, nonsense from Democrats. You know, she's talking about a Republican receiving a campaign donation from a Jeffrey Epstein after he was dead. I mean, this is insane. You know, we've got to get back to focusing on what is true. And Democrats are slinging mud whether they believe or know anything is true or not, and that's a problem.
Yeah, they're trying to build an Islamic neighborhood in your state as well, which is a story we've been covering. There's a new report showing a multi-generational campaign by the Muslim Brotherhood to transform Western society from within and covertly infiltrate the United States. I don't think that surprises a lot of people. It recommends designating the Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Your governor, Greg Abbott, recently designated the Brotherhood and CARE as terrorist organizations, which prevents them from obtaining land in the state. Is that a pretty solid foundation to go with? I mean, are they going to be able to get around that? Is that going to prevent things like that big city that they're trying to build?
Well, I think it's certainly a start, and there's a lot more work that we need to be done. And we've got to be very realistic about the reality here, which is that you have people from other parts of the globe who adhere to cultures and civilizations that are fundamentally incompatible with our own. The reality is that Islam as a political ideology is incompatible with the United States. It's incompatible with our constitutional system and with Western civilization more broadly. And we've got to be realistic. Do we want people who are coming to fundamentally change our way of life to be able to come into our country illegally or legally? And I think the answer is obviously no.
Yeah, well said. Congressman Brandon Gill, good to see you. Thanks so much. Former Vice President Dick Cheney laid to rest today at Washington National Cathedral in our nation's capital. His daughter Liz Cheney, the former Congresswoman, and former President George W. Bush speaking at the service. The funeral attended by Washington elites, career politicians. Joe and Jill Biden made an appearance. You can see Al Gore was there, Kamala, Mike Pence, Mitch McConnell, a number of big names for the funeral of Dick Cheney, the former Vice President of the United States. And then a bizarre photo here, Rachel Maddow from MSNBC sitting next to Anthony Fauci, the guy that gave us COVID. Bizarre photo, says a lot about modern political discourse and just how weird Washington is these days. Who would ever thought that Rachel Maddow would be at Dick Cheney's funeral? But that is the power of Trump derangement, I guess. The president and the vice president, Trump and Vance, not invited to attend. All right, about as ugly as it gets. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, set to hit in the new year with the big, beautiful bill. But a number of blue states are working vigorously to stop those tax breaks and then capture that money for their own budgets. No, we're not making this up, and it's up next.
If you have wet AMD or DME, you never want to lose sight of the things you love. And your condition doesn't have to steal the moment. Long-lasting EYLEA HD delivers powerful vision improvements that can save your vision for the future. EYLEA HD is the only treatment for wet AMD and DME that helped at least 8 out of 10 people go up to 4 months between injections after 3 initial monthly treatments. Don't take EYLEA HD if you have an eye infection, eye pain, redness, or are allergic to it. Eye injections like EYLEA HD may cause eye infection, separation of the retina, rare but severe swelling of blood vessels in the eye, or increased eye pressure. There is an uncommon risk of heart attack or stroke. There's still so much to see. Ask about next generation EYLEA HD, a treatment retina specialists trust.
What kind of gift can $34 get you these days? It could send someone overseas, drop them in their ancestral village, and give them a taste of their heritage. From mom's side and dad's side, it can open a whole new world of faraway places and fascinating people that make them who they are today. That's a big gift at our lowest price ever.
Welcome back. It's hard to imagine a more despicable move by money-hungry blue states. But as we speak right now, several of them are quickly drawing up tax bills for the new year that will enable them to keep the tax breaks given to Americans from Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. So if you're excited about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, or the $6,000 bonus senior deduction, you might live in a state that's more excited to keep that money and basically take it right out of your pocket. Residents who qualify for these breaks will not be able to claim them on their local tax returns in these cases, according to these states. Here's an example from USA Today. Colorado rejected no tax on overtime pay. It will add a line to its state tax form for excess federal deduction for overtime pay. Excess federal deduction for overtime pay. Taxpayers must report the amount deducted federally and add it back for state purposes. So that sounds like in Colorado that they're actually going to try and take what the federal government is giving you back and bring it into the state of Colorado. At least that's how it sounds. Washington, D.C. has voted to suspend multiple tax provisions in the law, like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, the bonus senior deduction. New York State has indicated it will continue taxing on tips and overtime pay, I guess at the state level for New York. Illinois has not adopted no tax on tips and overtime, so they're not going to give you that break. Maine rejecting the senior bonus deduction and deductions for car loan interest, tips, and overtime as well. So these are the states that really hate people and love taxes. Anthony Esposito from Ascalon 6 Capital joins us now to talk about this. This sounds about as awful as it gets. Let me just repeat what, because I can understand that, some of the states, they don't want to just give, no tax on tips on the state revenue. I think that makes sense, especially in these big blue states. But Colorado's saying that they're going to add a line to its state tax form for excess federal deduction for overtime pay, and they must report the amount deducted federally and add it back for state purposes. Colorado's trying to take the federal portion of your tip tax and put it in the state?
Yeah, it's ironic that the states, and I'll focus on New York for 1 second, but Colorado as well, the states that cannot manage their budget, that are looking to give away free transportation, free groceries, free everything, are now stuck in a spot where they can't live off the dole of the federal taxpayer, so they're going to squeeze the local and state and city taxpayers to pay for socialist programs. That's exactly what's going on. So the money that you could deduct on federal taxes, you'll have to add back in, and you'll have to pay tax on those to your state. The result is going to be exactly what we've seen, an exodus from these states, from these cities, by those that are actually paying taxes.
Okay, can you imagine a bigger middle finger that a state could give to people after a federal tax cut than to pull this stuff? I mean, what a way to tell people, we hate you, pay us.
Yeah, it's ironic. I mean, for a governor like Kathy Hochul, as an example, to be one out front screaming that Trump's tax cuts are only for the 1%, only for his wealthy, rich friends, and then turn around and squeeze the working class the way they are with a smile, there couldn't be more of an insulting stroke by state and local governments, but that's exactly what we're seeing.
And what it really reveals is that for as much as they scream about the rich and taxing the rich, they know that the real tax base is the middle class. That's where all the money comes from to pay for all their goodies. That's who always pays the bills. Anthony, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Trump loses his temper. The media cries victim. A fun conversation with Rick and Ed coming up next.
The affection in which my husband was held by all of you has sustained me.
She was the wife of President John F. Kennedy. She captivated the world with her grace and elegance, even in the darkest moments. Watch Jackie O, A Remarkable Life.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans. Compare drug coverage. Compare costs. See if you can save. And make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Compare plans now at Medicare.gov.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
High blood pressure is known as the silent killer. Now there's Respirit, the first ever FDA-cleared medical device, clinically proven to lower blood pressure.
The results I got were astounding. The blood pressure this morning was 110/79.
Multiple clinical trials report 82% of Respirit users reduced high blood pressure, and it was cleared to be sold without a prescription. We are so sure that Respirit will work for you, we guarantee it.
It's the best investment I've ever made in my life.
Go to Respirit.com now.
Afraid your roof won't make it through the winter? Roofmax can tune up and restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a replacement. Call now, and the tune-up portion is free with your Roofmax treatment.
Think of all the places that could expose you to identity theft and financial loss. It only takes one mistake at your bank, hospital, or employer for a criminal to gain access to your personal information. And if they do, you and your money are at risk.
I thought I'd be the last person on earth this would happen to.
It was devastating. $110,000 of my hard-earned money gone.
1 in 3 U.S. consumers have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk your financial future? With LifeLock, if your identity is compromised, we'll step in and fix it so you don't have to. Guaranteed. Our dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialists handle your case from start to finish. They contact institutions on your behalf, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support, far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
The bank didn't help me. The police department didn't help me. It was LifeLock who had my back on all this.
I was handled and taken care of. I didn't have to do anything.
In fact, we're so confident that restoration is guaranteed. Plus, LifeLock offers the $1 Million Protection Package with reimbursement up to $1 million for stolen funds, experts and lawyers, and out-of-pocket expenses, up to $3 million in total.
When I opened my mail and I had a check from LifeLock, I just started crying. They made me whole.
Act now to save 35% off an annual plan for your first year. Your membership includes identity monitoring and alerts, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist, and the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package. Don't face identity theft alone. Protect your future and finances with LifeLock, the leader in identity theft protection. Call 1-800-649-0629 or visit lifelock.com/35save to save 35% on your first year. Call 1-800-649-0629.
It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
It's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter.
All right. So the media has erupted this week as Trump loses his temper with reporters over the past several days. The incredible access that's given by this president to the media leads to, at times, very entitled reporters that look to antagonize the president and everything he does, and it turns into moments like we just saw. Remember, these same people, very cordial, very nice, very accommodating when the president's on the other side of the aisle. Very often disrespectful, interrupting, demanding answers, which is exactly what happened with the quiet piggy moment, which was the bad moment, right? That was the one on Friday where everybody was just so alarmed. But you had the Bloomberg reporter, Catherine Lucy, asking Trump what Epstein meant with the email to Michael Wolff, saying that, of course, Trump knew about the girls. He asked Elaine to stop. Trump gives an answer on that. Very expanded answer. And then he moves on to the next reporter, which asks about Venezuela. The same reporter comes back and just interrupts the Venezuela reporter and demands to talk more about Epstein because she knows that it's a very difficult subject and a subject that the president doesn't like to focus on at all. She gets, she's entitled and spoiled, and she's behaving that way. He doesn't have to come back into the plane and do press conferences on the jet. He does that for them, to give them access. The media's reaction to this, because it wasn't a great moment, was quite predictable. Take a look.
That is disgusting.
There's no excuse for that, right? No excuse for calling anybody piggy.
Obviously, that was wildly inappropriate, despicable.
This is an administration of trolls.
He called Rosie O'Donnell a big fat pig back in 2006. Yeah. That's his favorite word.
Okay, so there it is. And by the way, last night we showed you a number of instances where Democrats have just assailed media members after being asked very polite, normal questions that they just didn't like. So this goes both ways. And then there was ABC's Mary Bruce, who was lambasted by Trump in the Oval Office with the Saudi Crown Prince in attendance. Trump calling her a terrible reporter after she insulted the Crown Prince over 9/11 and over Jamal Khashoggi. And Trump is trying right now to lure him towards the West, right? Trying to lure the Crown Prince toward the United States, away from China and Russia. And he's trying to use commerce to force the Muslims and the Jews to get along and find peace in the Middle East. He's trying to do something pretty incredible here with the Abraham Accords. He's trying to find peace in a place of the world where there is never peace. So he didn't need this line of questioning. He didn't like it at all. And then she follows that up with another very harsh question about Epstein, which, again, if there was anything with Trump and Epstein, don't you think it would have come out in the previous administration? They ignore that. They just want to keep badgering with the question because they know it's insulting to him. They know it hurts him politically. Here was Mary Bruce on Good Morning America after she was insulted. Of course, victim central.
I don't have to tell you, these are extremely challenging times, and thank you for your reporting and your willingness to ask these types of questions. It must be surreal for you, Mary.
It is a little surreal, and Robin, thank you for that, but it is also just our job, and we're going to continue to do that.
Oh, thank you for that, Mary.
And you did it well, Mary.
Yeah, she's just an honest reporter trying to do a good job. And two hosts, Ed Henry and Rick Leventhal, join us now. Surreal, Ed, is the word that I thought was so funny. What's surreal is that you have ABC, which is a federally licensed network that spends all day long trying to destroy the political career of Donald Trump and the Republican Party.
Yeah, and they've lied about the president a lot. I remember covering the White House and having Barack Obama hurl all kinds of insults at me, whether it was one time when I asked a tough question about Iran, he said something like, would you get that question from Mitt Romney? Like somehow I was just, getting talking points from the Republican, which was not, I didn't even talk to Mitt Romney. Peter Doocy at Fox, you remember, back in the Biden days, he was called a stupid SOB by the president of the United States. Nobody was clutching their pearls when I got attacked or Doocy got attacked because, we were challenging Democrats, and the Democrats were insulting, correspondents who were seen as being, more MAGA or something. And so nobody in the mainstream media cares. Now there's a fake newser who gets attacked, and they're saying, thank you for doing such a great job. Thank you for enduring this president. He's pushing back. He's a counterpuncher, and they can't take it. We took this all the time, and the media didn't care.
Yeah, and again, I have to restate that there's no camera on the reporters in these moments. So you can't see how obnoxious Catherine Lucy was perhaps being in that moment. I mean, Trump puts up with a lot of crap from the media. He rarely, when he said, "Oh, piggy," I was like, "Oh, great, here we go." But it's just, you don't know what in that moment was like and how she was behaving. You know that she interjected and interrupted another reporter, which was not appropriate. Rick, the White House putting a new edition on the website titled "ABC News is Fake News," going after the network, saying they're not journalism, it's Democrat spin operation masquerading as a broadcast network, listing so many different examples of ABC's bias. They put it right up here on the website. And there are just countless examples of ABC, which, again, all through the day and into the night is a network that has, it seems, one ideology, which is against what this Republican Party has become. It is establishment, it is Democrat, it is globalist. That's what they want to put into people's minds.
And that was the subject of my monologue on last night's show, by the way, where I talked about all the bad press that Donald Trump has gotten since before he ran the first time back in 2016. The amount of negative stories about this president are way off the charts. 92% in his first 100 days this year alone. 92% negative stories from the big three broadcast networks about Donald Trump, who has gotten more done in his first 2 months, 5 months, 10 months than most presidents can achieve in an entire term. And you talk about a reporter saying, I was just doing my job. Were you doing your job under Joe Biden? Were you asking him really tough questions? Probably not, in large part because Joe Biden didn't take a whole lot of questions. He was hiding most of the time. And like you said, Rob, Donald Trump is out there. He's front and center, and he's taking them on. But you got to keep it in perspective and keep the context there. Because he's under attack constantly, of course he might, once in a while, throw something back in there.
And it's, I mean, you sit there and it looked like a funeral on ABC News. They were so somber about it. And you're thinking like, I mean, he's for 10 years, he's gotten 95, 97% negative coverage from you people. You don't, I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't said way worse. You know, I mean, what would it take for you to fly off the handle after 10 years of this BS? That's the point. I got to leave it there, guys. Good to see you both. Ed and Rick. Thanks, Ed.
All right, good to see you.
The H-1B visa has created MAGA turmoil. We've got that next with Trump's labor secretary.
It's about political points.
People deserve better fiscal.
It's terrible. Politics seeps into everything.
What do you mean? Talk about climate change or the economy or, of course, elections.
You can't find out what we should really expect to happen.
But of course you can.
Go to IBKR's Forecast Trader.
Put your money where your mouth is.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You'll see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
All right, some breaking news on this Thursday night. President Trump's 28-point plan to end the war in Ukraine has now been released. U.S. negotiators consulted with the Russians on this plan, so it would appear that Putin would end the war if this deal could be made. So this is big news. In the plan, Kiev would give up additional territory in the east of Ukraine. Russia would get that territory for themselves. They would cap the size of Ukraine's military and agree to never join NATO. On Russia's side, $100 billion in frozen Russian assets would be dedicated to rebuilding Ukraine after this years-long war. The plan was drafted by envoy Steve Witkoff, input from Secretary of State Rubio, and also Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. We'll follow it.
They're going to have to bring thousands of people with them, and I'm going to welcome those people. I love my conservative friends. I love MAGA, but this is MAGA. And those people are going to teach our people how to make computer chips. And in a short period of time, our people are going to be doing great. And those people can go home.
All right, so the president at this Saudi investment forum in D.C. on Wednesday explaining that the trillions that are coming into the country, major companies building chip plants in places like Arizona, that he is going to welcome thousands of H-1B foreign workers into the country in an effort to train American workers on how to make these chips, make other things as well. Calling the policy MAGA, but the policy, that idea has gotten a lot of pushback from MAGA. Sources telling the Daily Signal that the Trump administration is divided over how to best constrain the H-1B program, adding that one faction wants to restrict the program so much that foreigners won't be able to use it, while others think that it's useful to bring in exceptional talent. That's the president's side of the story, right? Here was the vice president with our own Greg Kelly over the summer.
This idea that American citizens don't have the talent to do great things, that you have to import a foreign class of servants and professors to do these things, I just reject that. I actually think we invest in our own people, we can do a lot of good.
Lori Chavez-DeRemer is the Secretary of Labor, and she joins us to talk about this. And Madam Secretary, it's good to have you on the show. Good to see you. There is a
good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. There's a split on H-1B. I think it's largely due to the fact that the program has been so exploited by companies that have been looking to subvert good, strong American wages for a long time now. What's the belief, inside your department about where we should go with this visa?
Well, thank you for asking. First and foremost, we do want to make sure that any of the programs that are run through the Department of Labor, that anyone who's using any program is following the law and the law that was intended, and that's the H-1B visa program. We do not want any company who uses this program or anybody who is contracting for this program to exploit it and abuse it. I did enforce an enforcement initiative, Project Firewall, for this exact reason. Do we need talent in this country? Absolutely. But we want to make sure that we are putting the American worker first. Yeah. So while this program is being used, we want to make sure that people are following the law. And if they're not following the law, there will be an enforcement, possibly debarment from using the program in the future. So there is space for it. But we want to make sure that the American worker is skilled as well. And that's what the focus of, the consolidation of a lot of the education and labor department are doing together. Secretary McMahon and I are laser focused with this president on making sure we have an educated workforce here in America.
Yeah. And I mean, when they introduced the $100,000 fee on the H-1B, when the president introduced that months ago, that was very popular because people knew H-1B is getting abused. Our workers we're subverting our own workers for cheaper foreign labor. A lot of them coming from India, places like that, China. Companies are subverting that, though, that $100,000 fee. Reportedly sending these foreign workers to work in offices in Canada or the UK for a year makes them eligible for an L1 intracompany transfer visa, allows them to move to the U.S., skipping the H-1B visa entirely. So you just go to a different country for 1 year, and then you slide in, and that $100,000 gets subverted. How do you guys stop that? Is there a plan in place to prevent that from happening?
Absolutely. This is, again, this Project Firewall. We have over 200 investigations happening now. Some of those I can personally certify. For the first time in history, the Secretary has not certified any of these investigations. But if we find that there are anybody who is breaking the law, we will make sure that I certify those. and we can do the full investigation and then have the consequences that are deemed necessary to make sure that we're not continuing down that road. We never want to depress the American wage earner and or replace them. So we're going to work hard on this. This is very important to the administration, and it's very important to the American workforce that the president has been so laser focused on.
Is there any indication of how much of that fee has been collected? That $100,000 fee, is there a lot of it?
Well, that's certainly going to go through USCIS. We're making sure that we're working with the Department of Homeland, the Department of State on a lot of these H programs. So I do not have a number for what has been collected.
Well, not to interrupt you, but is there any indication that it's slowed down the amount of companies using H-1B or potentially abusing H-1B? Has it slowed down?
Well, that's certainly the intent, that if you're going to apply for the H-1B visa program, and this is, a worker that you cannot find in the United States of America, and that you absolutely have to have the technology that's needed for a lot of things that the president has mentioned, chips, science, all of the high technology industries, then we want to make sure that you absolutely need that worker, and that $100,000 fee will bear that out.
You mentioned Linda McMahon, the education secretary. Your department is going to be absorbing, as education, that department gets broken apart because it's been so awful. You're going to be absorbing some of that. Can you quickly explain what you guys will be doing at Labor as far as education goes?
Yeah, I think the best way to explain that is that we have failed, parents and our future workforce and the students across this country. Right. We want to make sure that we're passing down a lot of the funding to our respective states, closest to the child, closest to the parent. So in its simplest form, we're making sure that we are matching up not only K through 12 and post-secondary education, but we are aligning that for the future workforce. So we have been listening to our business owners. What do they need? What are the market demands? And we want to make sure that those grant dollars go to those states where they are making sure that they have the trained workforce for what is needed now, not unlike what has been happening in the past. So this is a key element for the coalition between education and labor. They are our future workforce. We want to make sure that we have those dollars to have that trained workforce, and that starts as early as K-12 and post-secondary, which is what we signed just yesterday, and the implementation will happen over the next few months.
Education at the federal level needed a tremendous amount of work. It needs to be moved back to the states largely, but any help it can get is much welcome. The Labor Secretary, Lori Chavez-DeRemer, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
An FBI employee claims he was fired for having a pride flag draped over his desk. Is that the real story? Next.
They were going to start looking at all of our personnel files where some of us did self-identify our sexual orientation.
Growing up, kids face a lot of stress. Girls on the Run turns that stress into strength. Through fun activities, girls build confidence and learn life skills like managing emotions and resolving conflict. Doing this work for 2 decades has shown me that youth mental health is complex. Every girl is unique, and there isn't one simple fix. Let's come together to empower girls, support parents, and strengthen families.
At Pure Talk, life is simple, and so are the deals. For instance, an unlimited wireless plan means unlimited savings for life. Not for the life of your phone, for your life. Unlimited talk, text, and data on a crazy fast 5G network for $29.95 a month for the rest of your life. Honestly, there's never been another deal like it. In fact, you might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Pure Talk, everything you need, nothing you don't.
Ransomware scares me.
Cyberman to the rescue. PCmatic blocks the ransomware that hijacks your computer and your data, then demands a ransom.
Hackers are terrifying.
Hackers are always spying on your computer. PCmatic's VPN stops hacking.
My computer is slow.
PCmatic makes your computer faster. PCmatic is made in America and protects homes, businesses, and governments.
Thank you, Cyberman. Go to PCmatic.com.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
As a fighter, being on my game isn't optional. I grew up in a family of fighters, and we push each other every day. If I'm not eating right, I can't keep up, so I take my diet very seriously. Balance of Nature makes it easy to get 31 whole fruit and vegetable ingredients every single day. A good routine makes all the difference. Balance of Nature makes it easier. You can't beat that.
He's breathing. Okay, go again.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. A former FBI agent, David Maltinsky, filing a lawsuit alleging that he was fired for having a pride flag draped over his desk. Take a look.
But I knew I was on a list. They were going to start looking at all of our personnel files where some of us did self-identify our sexual orientation. Some people did identify as trans. I don't know what their goal was, but it was to send a chilling effect throughout the men and women at the FBI. It was effective. Many gay colleagues have removed pride flags from their desks.
Why would anybody need an entire flag over their desk at work at the FBI? I mean, does anybody think that that's a serious person? His entire identity is his sexuality. You think that's a competent employee? Our friend Rick Grinnell pointing out he was there 16 years before he was about to become an agent. He's probably not the brightest bulb, and they dumped him because that's as ridiculous as it gets. Next up, Kamala on Trump and the Epstein files. Enjoy.
I think it is, again, just another, the current president's statements most recently about this are another example of him attempting to gaslight the American people. And I say that because all of a sudden he is saying he'll wait to see what Congress does. All of a sudden now he's waiting for Congress to greenlight what he will do or wants to do? Come on. Yeah. So release the files.
Release the files from the woman that sat on the files for 4 years and couldn't have cared less. Phony Kamala. And finally, researchers from Australia giving new advice to have parents get consent from their little tiny babies before they change their diapers. We showed you the story this week. Our show's Booker Moshe just had twins. Aren't they cute? Struggling, though, to get consent to change the diapers at that young age. It's very difficult to do, but Moshe is trying, he tells us. We hit the streets to talk with New Yorkers about this latest madness from the woke.
Consent from a baby to change its diaper.
No. No. No.
No, that's ridiculous.
Why would you need the consent? It's your baby.
I think that doesn't make sense.
They can't even tell.
Get a grip. Echoed.
Wait, ask the question again?
It's silly. I think it's ludicrous. I think it's ridiculous.
That's bull. We are parents for a reason, to teach them.
Can they even give consent?
Child doesn't have the ability to consent.
I feel like they're too young to know what consent even is.
I guess I'm a little amazed because the parent takes care, or whoever the person is responsible for the baby. The baby wouldn't know enough.
I mean, I think it would be hard to get an answer. What is the baby going to say? Yes? No? That's insane.
But I think that kind of makes sense. Yeah, because these days a lot of parents want to, I don't know, it's my baby. Why do I need to get consent to change my baby?
I don't think I would want to sit in a dirty diaper, so I'm assuming that applies for him too.
Maybe I'll try.
Good luck with that.
We love Rob Schmitt Tonight!
Wow. I didn't see that part coming. The next escalation of this is going to be that the baby should just change its own diaper, right? Cristiano Ronaldo absolutely loves Trump. This was great. Next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart,
bold, and stand strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finity weeknights only on Newsmax.
Sonobello helped me get back my sparkle this season.
This year, look amazing in every holiday photo with Sonobello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
Before I would hide in the back of photographs, I didn't expect the results to be this good. I'm so happy about it.
This holiday, save 50% on the area you're most excited to change. Tummy, waist, arms, thighs, you choose.
I got lipo done on my stomach and also on my arms as well. Best decision ever.
Sonobello permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin, all in just one visit with less downtime.
All the fat was gone. When I saw myself in the dress, I knew I was about to live my best life.
Call 800-665-0288 to save 50% on your first area this holiday. Appointments are filling fast.
Run, do it. Because if you can feel half of what I feel, totally worth it.
This is a limited time offer. Save 50% on your first area. Call Sonobello today.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
The Black Friday sale is on with the lowest price of the year. Order online in minutes, and your kit that treats common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Don't miss Black Friday savings. Visit urgentcarekit.com/Black Friday. That's urgentcarekit.com/Black Friday.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
Hey, I'm Mike Hammond from Signal Relief. You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult for me. But that's why I love the Signal Relief patch. It helped me enjoy the holidays again. It helped me enjoy my family again. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers in pain because I know it works. In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief. It really doesn't matter where you hurt because the patch works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. For a limited time, we're bringing back our largest discount ever, 50% off. So get a Signal Relief patch today. Trust me when I tell you, the patch works.
And finally tonight, the White House making a fun AI video of Trump with the soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo after the legend came to the White House for a state dinner this week. Ronaldo posting on his own Instagram these pictures. Look how happy he looks. 668 million followers, probably the two most famous men in the world right there. Ronaldo cheesing in every single photo and video. The president posting, he's a great guy. Love meeting him at the White House. Really smart and really cool. Pretty fun stuff at the White House. Ronaldo is a Trump fan. Who knew? We'll see you tomorrow.